Hey, welcome to the second course. We're looking at the song Who I Was by NF from the 2025 EP called Fear. This is his feature with Machine Gun Kelly. And let's jump on over and see what Genius has to say. It says Who I Was marks the first collaboration between NF and Machine Gun Kelly, which was first teased when MGK replied to NF in a tweet where he said, "I'm working." NF and MGK rap over an acoustic guitar with NF's chorus vocals pitched up about how hard it feels to care about something, someone, or oneself, as fear and anxiety tend to make it fade away. It was the second single preceding the Fear EP, released merely one day prior on November 13th, 2025. This is what it says here. This is kind of just same information we just saw. So let's float up and look at the lyrics together. Looks like there are some annotations here, so that's cool. Ash and dust, everything I care about and love, burning up. Nothing left of who I thought I was. I'm stuck in traffic, this MGK's verse. Trying to find my way to a home that I've never known, on a GPS with no address. So I'll follow my heart, but my heart is scattered, like my father's ashes in the back of the rental after I dropped his urn. Probably a metaphor for everything I've learned, like how the only love I'll have is going to crash and burn, or how the poorest I felt was after the most I've earned. I'm just reading this for a second because I'm trying to connect some ideas here before we kind of hop back up and look. The biggest lie I told is that no one should be concerned. There's got to be another highway that don't lead to hell. A star to lead me through the darkest night, like Christian Bale, obviously a reference to Batman and the Darkest Night, the Dark Knight. I hid from God more than 2 decades of... Okay, let's go up here. So this is interesting because it's kind of like, is this whole story he's telling a physical that is also a metaphor, or is it just metaphor? Because this almost makes it sound like if he has his father's ashes, and let's just say, I don't fully know MGK's past, but if he didn't have a great relationship with his family, it's almost like he's trying to go visit because he has his father's ashes, but it's a home. So because his family's there, but it's not one he's really ever known. Which I guess let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and answer the question. Did MGK have a good home life? That would be 2 words. Home life. Oh, where's my face? There's my face. Okay, no, his home life was far from good. In the conventional sense, he's openly described a childhood marked by instability, absence, trauma, and emotional neglect. Here are the major details on how they shaped him. Born Colson Baker in Houston, Texas, his parents were Christian missionaries. Really? Wow. And he lived in Egypt, Kenya, and Germany early on. Mother left when he was about 9 years old, he says. I didn't hear the word mom during my whole teenage years. All I heard was whore. Wow. Wow, dude. And this is probably coming from his father. That's so sad. His father battled depression and unemployment. His father's childhood also carried trauma. His father was on trial at 9 years old for the murder of his own father, and that this legacy bled into his upbringing. He reported being bullied as a kid in school, having very few clothes, moving around a lot. Man, that's so sad, dude. So, no, didn't have a good home life. And so you do wonder if even the idea here, if even the idea here is if he's going to his mother's house Who knows? But it's never been a home for him. So I'll follow my heart, but my heart is scattered, like my father's ashes in the back of the rental after I dropped his urn. Yeah, you got to be careful following your heart. If we're going to move off the themes of obviously NF as a Christian and, trying to figure out, which is what's so beautiful about his music, is I think it helps people see that, like, you don't have to be perfect to come to God. You don't have to be perfect. Like, Jesus was perfect. And so you'll never stand before the Lord and be like, well, I did all of this, or I went to church this many times, or I prayed all, this many times. And like, these can all be good things, but the only thing that you could possibly do is stand before God and be like, it was him. He did it. He earned it for me. And so in the same sense, like, we're told to beware of our hearts ultimately, because our hearts are deceptive. And so we're trying to instead listen to the voice of the Lord as he speaks through his Spirit, as he speaks through the scriptures, and use wisdom to discern, what is the right way. And God, and I think that many times we can call that like, God, speak to my heart. But in that, you're recognizing it's an outside source. It's not just like, oh, like what feels good to me? Because listening to your heart can be dangerous, dude. You can see a pretty woman and your heart's like, oh, I want that. If you're married, you have to go, yeah, but that's not right. That's not for me. I'm committed. And so in that sense, yeah, don't listen to your heart. Or whatever else other people say you'd be listening to. Like my father's ashes. Okay, so we saw that. Let's go back here. Probably a metaphor for everything I've learned. Like so this is interesting. Bar is similar, though probably unrelated to Mowgli, to the Icebergs. I don't know what that is. Off of Indie Tribes, a Christian rap collective, sophomore album. I shaved my hair so I could grow it back. Think that's a metaphor for everything I've been through. I'm going to tell you about. Okay. Like how the only love I'll have is going to crash and burn. This line is a direct summary of the entire theme of his Tickets to My Downfall and Mainstream Sellout albums. Those are MGK albums. Many of his old pop punk songs are about this exact idea. My Ex's Best Boyfriend, Forget Me Too, I Think I'm Okay. All these songs describe relationships that are intense, toxic, and destructive. He's referencing that entire catalog of his own work. Oh, cool. Can also be interpreted through what he's been through emotionally in recent years. His relationship with Megan Fox had a significant impact on his life. Makes sense listeners connect some of those feelings to his lyrics. They seem to be doing really well, too. Like, they have a baby. All right. Or how the poorest I've felt was after the most I've earned, which we talked about that a little bit. I mean, obviously, that's just the idea that's like just earning money. May satisfy you for a time, may put you on a high, but ultimately it does not satisfy. It medicates, it overshadows, it can, create some space, some margin, some opportunity, some security, but in the end, like, it doesn't solve the deeper things. And so if you can have money and security, live in generosity, but also have this deeper joy, this deeper understanding that if everything was stripped away, I would still be a rich man, because the relationships that I have, relationships with wife or children or friends, or obviously your relationship with the Lord. So we've seen that story so many times. The biggest lie told is that no one should be concerned. And really that's about him, right? Like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But in reality, it's like screaming for help. There's got to be another highway that don't lead to hell, a star to lead me through the darkest night, like Christian Bell. I hid from God for more than 2 decades of my life. And when I came back to the light, he didn't ask me if I'm Christian still. Just opened up his arms and embraced me like his son. This is an interesting... What in the world? This is an interesting line. He's saying after a lifetime of running away from the God of his strict childhood, he had a spiritual reawakening, like after his father's death and his own personal struggles. He realized that the lighter God was not the strict judgmental figure he was raised to fear, but something that accepted him unconditionally, erasing all the archetypes of what people like me become. It's a statement of him finding his own more accepting version of faith after decades of rebellion. Okay, so that's an interesting conversation, because obviously if you were coming from a Christian perspective, it is a big conversation, because to be Christian is to believe that Jesus is the only way to the Father. And Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, that he is the Word made flesh, lived among us. And so, which is what I hold to. Perfectly fine. We, have lots of people on this channel that have different feelings, and we've tried to create a space where we can all enjoy music and learn and talk and things like that. And so I share my views unashamedly. And so with this, though, it's interesting, too, because I had a friend one time that was like, I just don't want to be called a Christian. He loved Jesus, but he's like, I don't want to be called a Christian because of the connotations with it, which does suck, And I think that's part of what he's saying. And obviously, he has some deep hurt toward probably ministry that then translated toward, his view of God, because it says his parents were missionaries, but then obviously something went off the rails, and that obviously affected him as a young man. And so in the same sense, though, you also have to realize that the church, so the word church is ecclesia or ecclesia. It means those called out, which is a beautiful picture, right? God comes to us. It is, we're getting close to the Christmas season. It is Emmanuel, God with us. He pursues us. He woos us. He puts himself on display. He extends mercy and kindness. And so in that same sense, it's those that are called out. So really they're followers of Jesus, followers of the way was how it began. And then you find in the book of Acts that it's at Antioch, they are first called Christians. And so there is a label attached to them as Christ followers. That's where the word Christian comes from. And so I don't want to wholesale be like, no, don't call me a Christian, because I do think in the purest sense, it is a recognition of what that means. It means somebody that believes that Jesus Christ is God. You have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that to know the Father, to receive forgiveness, to receive an inheritance in heaven, you must put your faith in Jesus and Jesus alone, forsaking all others, especially forsaking yourself, and saying, God, your ways are better, your ways are higher, your ways are richer and deeper, and I want to follow those ways, so lead me in that way. But I feel like what he is really pushing back against is this very ugly view, the worst view of what Christian means. And unfortunately, so many people have only encountered that. Like somebody like MGK, walks into a church that I'm a part of. Nobody cares. Who cares? Like, I've got tattoos. I don't wear a suit and tie or even a polo. I dress however. I don't know. I got black jeans on. There you go. I got black jeans on. I don't know. It doesn't matter if it's a hoodie and cargos, because that's not what it's about. And there are a lot of systems that are ugly and corrupt and turn a lot of people away. And so I feel like that's really what he's pushing back against there. Because that's erasing all the archetypes of what people like me become. Yes, because the Father, dude, he doesn't care. The Father welcomes you. It's the story of the prodigal. The prodigal son has this whole idea of, he basically squanders his father's wealth and loose living, and then has no money and has got this awful job and is hungry and just wishing he could even eat what the pigs are eating that he's feeding. And he makes this whole scheme like, I'm going to go back home because at least my father's servants eat better than me. And I'll cast myself at his feet and I'll tell him how sorry I am. And then when he steps on his father's land, his father sees him from afar, as if he was, each day out there working and things and watching for him, waiting for him to, maybe today he'll step up on, maybe today he'll come home. And, when his son shows up and the father sees him across, he runs to him. And he begins to, it's beautiful, man. He begins to say, my father, how, and he's just like, shh. He puts a robe on him, puts a ring on his fingers, sandals on his feet. He throws him a party. And he says, this son of mine who was dead is now alive. They can have a conversation on the other end of like, man, how can we avoid that again? Is there anything that you learned? Let's do better. That's a perfectly reasonable conversation. And the father does the same with us, right? But he doesn't say, clean it up and then come home. Or you can come home, but you can only sit there. No, dude, immediately when you put your faith in Jesus Christ, you are declared righteous and clean, and your inheritance is in heaven, and all the promises of God are yes towards you. Doesn't mean everything's easy. Doesn't mean you're on smooth sailing, but that he's with you through it all, and he will teach and instruct and provide and give grace. But everything that he has is yours. Beautiful. Since I was young, my personality split like serpent's tongue, but all the poison in my body still ain't make me numb, which I'm assuming is a reference to drugs here. I know that he's struggled with substance abuse, which we can see what it's, yeah. I lost a best friend and felt all that, crying on his open casket while I knelt on that. I had a best man picked out for my wedding, but instead of getting married, I carried guilt and left all that. This line shows MGK taking responsibility for walking away from a relationship he was close to committing to. Instead of moving forward with marriage, he let his own guilt and internal struggles push him to leave behind something he now clearly regrets. It's not framed as someone else's mistake. He's admitting he carried emotional weight he couldn't handle. This led to him leaving a relationship he still values in hindsight. A vagabond that broke a bond for Boca Raton. Interesting. So yeah, it sounds like moving toward commitment, but then he kind of just ran off. This vagabond broke a bond for Boca Raton, this vacation place or this place to go party or whatever, who all along regretted he never kept all that. I left everything behind but this engagement ring and a frozen heart. I'm standing in the fire to melt all that. All right, and then we go back into this. And then in F's verse, lash out, need to take a breath and calm down, try to regulate, don't know how. Wasn't taught that in my house. So this idea of, learning how to deal with emotions intelligently. Kids of my own, I step back, look at those smiles and feel sad. Hope they don't wind up like dad, stuck in this loop like I am. So I think it feels like a double to me here. Because part of it is saying that the idea of there being joy in front of you, something you should be happy about, but yet you feel numb on the inside. So there's that, look at those smiles and feel sad. But the other, he points straight to it. He's also looking at them thinking like, dang, are they going to end up just like me? Hope they don't wind up like dad, stuck in this loop like I am. And the reality is our kids will have their own struggles, their own difficulties. But in the same sense, because he said he wasn't taught in his house how to regulate his feelings. And so I would imagine, and it's hard sometimes to see the progress, that he has done some things differently in his own household, and that his children do have a greater opportunity to experience a greater level of freedom and joy. One of the things we're all trying to do is break the sins of our fathers. And we all hope that for our children, not to just set them up for success financially or whatever, but in their mindsets and in their emotions, and that they can hopefully have a greater level of joy and freedom. But they will, in the end, have their own struggles, and that's part of being human. Called you, never heard back. After everything we've been through, the good and the bad, you're about to throw it all away and overreact, because I overreacted. My temper gets the best of me. I wonder who he's talking about. Is he talking to the Lord here? But this doesn't sound like that. My temper gets the best of me, a part of me that I wish I knew how to get rid of. It's an issue I have. My MO says I need you and I love you to death, then turn around and go and treat you like nothing but trash. I know I messed that part up, but see, I'm curious. Yeah, if you know in the comments, some of these do, sound like he could be speaking to the Lord, but is he speaking to a person? Did something go on, in his life? Because I don't think, there's not anything here that really gives us an insight into this. We could see. Let's go. Do you know who NF is speaking about in this line from song Who I Was? Okay. Let's not take this for fact because it doesn't know. In Hope, in 2023, he discussed repairing his marriage, how his temper, anxiety, emotional patterns created tension. So he's described heated exchanges with his wife during periods of emotional dysregulation. So NF said he used to shut down during arguments. His temper would flare before he was aware of it. His wife would sometimes leave the room or need distance until he calmed down. He regrets how he acted in the earlier years of their relationship. Therapy radically changed their communication. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. And also, again, with somewhat of this album's theme up to this point being this kind of regression, it could be that he's seeing a reemergence of some habits that he thought he had put to bed. All right, and then the rest just repeats. Wow. Really powerful song. And again, he's not 100% answering, he's not saying, but then, or here's the way out. Excuse me. He's just being honest about where he's at. And I think in the same sense, that can be very healing as well. Just for others to know, like, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm in the middle of it, and I'm still holding on, and the Lord's still holding on to me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. Thanks for being with me for this one. I hope to see you in the next one, because we're eating good.